Styling your website is actually one of the most important things that you can do when you're building a web page, because that is what everybody is going to see. They're going to see the fonts, they're going to see the colors, they're going to see the spacing and all of the different content sections and so forth. So it's definitely beneficial to spend a lot of time and a lot of technique on building your style sheets. So for the next few videos, I'm going to actually go in a little bit further into styling your website, and we're going to show you some additional properties. So back in our main master page, up at the top, what we did is we added a link to our default.css style sheet. Now this style sheet is actually going to be placed or applied to every page on the site that is based on the master page. Well, what if we wanted to style an individual page and not affect any of the other pages on our site? This is actually where the content placeholder is going to come into place. On our page2.aspx file, we have two content sections, actually three content sections. We have our head, our main content, and our footer. If we wanted to apply a style only to this page, what we would do is we would put a link in the head tag on this particular page, and it would be applied only to this page. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new style sheet, and again we just right click on our styles folder, add new item, we go to style sheets, and we're just going to call this secondary.css. Now when this first opens, Visual Studio automatically puts in a body tag, so we're going to take that body tag out. Back on our page 2, we're going to go into our main content section, and we're going to force it to drop down a line. And then what we're going to add is we're going to add what's called nested div tags. Now the nested div tags are basically div tags inside another div tag. So if you think about it, what we're going to do is we're going to create an outer div tag or outer container, and then put two smaller containers inside that outer container. So the way we want to do that is we want to do div id equals outer and close it, and then inside we'll do div id equals left content, go to the end and drop down a line, div id equals right content. So essentially what we did is we placed two div tags, two div containers inside our large outer container, and now we actually need to style those so that they show up right on our site. So the first ID that we have is outer. So if we go into secondary.css, we do #outer, and what we're going to do is so that we can see how everything shows up on the site, we're going to specify a width, a height, and a border. So we're going to do width 500 pixels, height 500 pixels, and border. Now before I finish typing this, if you notice, as I start typing, Visual Studio automatically goes down and tries to pick what it thinks that I'm going to end up typing. It did pick correctly because it's on border. Now if I want to save myself a little bit of typing so that I don't actually have to type the RDER, what I can do is I can just hit the tab key and it automatically finishes that line for me. You might have noticed that I did that when I typed in the width and the height. But it actually speeds up your typing, so if you're typing a lot of code, then it saves time in just being able to hit the tab key and have it be able to finish your words. And you'll find out as we start getting into the Visual C# code that it's going to save you a lot of time in typing. So the border that we want to put on it is going to be, let's do a thick border. We'll do 3 pixels wide. We'll make it solid, and we'll just make it the standard black. Now our left div, or left content, we're going to make it a little under half the width and the height. So we'll do width 200 pixels, height 200 pixels, And the border color we're going to put on there is going to be, let's go ahead and do red. Okay. And the last one is our right content. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste all this because we're only going to change the border color. So instead of that, we'll do green. So now what we should have when we run this is we should have an outer table, or an outer div, which is 500 pixels by 500 pixels, has a 3 pixel wide border, solid, and black. And the only thing I didn't do is down here I didn't specify the border size and type. So the outer table, or the outer div, is going to have a 3 pixel wide border. The two inner divs are going to have a 1 pixel wide border, and they're going to be a different color. Now, how do we go through and we add this to our page? Well, that's simple. Go back to page 2, go up in our head tag, or our head content section, and we click and drag, and it creates the link for us, style/secondary.css. So we've actually applied that style sheet to this particular page. So now, in review, we have created an outer div, a left content div, and a right content div. So if we go ahead and run this, we should now have our outer div, black, our left content, and our right content. Well, why is it on top and bottom instead of left and right? Well, there's another property that I'm going to show you here. It's called float. So we go back into our secondary.css, and we drop down a line, and we type float, and since this is the left content, we want to do left. And then in the right, we do right. And just so it makes it a little easier for us to see, we're going to do left content here, right content here. So when we run it, we now see that we have our outer div and our two inner divs, left content here and right content here. So this is basically how you actually go through and position your divs inside your page. You can position them inside another div, you can position them on the whole page itself, doesn't matter, as long as you make sure that you use the right properties and set the width and the height. If we did not set the width and the height on the say the outer div, what it would do is it would make a single line up here, and then since we specified the width and the height on the inner divs, they would actually overlap and go outside of this this outer div tag. There is another way that we can make sure that our outer div tag is stretched to fit all of our content, and only the height of our content, by using another property called clear. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our page 2, and under here we'll put another div tag in here, div, and this one will make a class equals clear. Okay, so we now have 3 div tags in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use another property in another CSS property called clear, and so we go into our CSS. Since it's a class, we use a period instead of a pound sign. We type clear, and the property is clear. And what we're going to do is we're going to clear both. And what this does is it clears any formatting that we've done previously for floating things to the right or floating them to the left. So to see this in action, we'll actually take out the height equals 500, and there's 2 different ways that you can do this. We can either delete the line entirely, or you can use what's called a comment. And comments can be used in not only HTML but also CSS and your C# programming code. The syntax form is a little bit different, but in a CSS file the syntax is /* to begin the comment, and then at the end of the line you reverse it, you go */. And Visual Studio actually makes that makes that part of the code green so that you can visually see that that line is commented out. So now if we go back to our page 2, we have our outer, our left, our right, and then our invisible clear class. So if we run this, we should see that the outer table is only as high as the two inner tables, or not table, div. The outer div is only as high as the content, the left content and the right content, which is actually 200 pixels. Now what if we wanted to make the right content a little bit longer? What would it do? Well, it would actually force the outer table to grow to accommodate the height, the complete height of our right content section. So if we go ahead and go back into our CSS and make the height on that 300 and run it, we now see that the outer table, oops, page 2.aspx, we now see that the outer table is accommodating the total height of the right content area. And it would also do the same thing on the width as well, if we went ahead and took the width out. So this just gives you an idea as far as the positioning and as far as the height and the width, and being able to float things on the left and the right, and to not specify the height and just have it accommodate any content that's actually placed inside that div. And you'll find as you go through and start designing your website, you'll find that that you might not necessarily know the particular height of the content or how much content you're going to have on a page. So that clear property is definitely a useful property in the fact that it will keep your page layout looking the way that you originally intended on, but it will also accommodate all of the content that you actually place on the page. So the last thing I'm going to show you is in this video is the border. When we set the border, we actually specify the width, the type, and the color all in one line. Well, another way that we can do is we can actually specify it in different lines. So if we go drop one down, and we only want to say do the top border. So if we look here, as we start typing border, we have border bottom, border left, border right, border top. And we can specify the settings for only the top of the border. And if we go back and we do, let's drop that one again, border top, we can actually specify just the color, just the style, and just the width. We can also specify the overall width if we still want to use the border, the tag that only has border in it. We can specify the overall width for this particular CSS class, and or we can specify each individual. So we can actually have different widths for the top and bottom borders as opposed to the left and right borders, or we can have all of the widths the same, and that goes the same for the type and the color as well. We could actually have a rainbow colored border on it if we really wanted to. I don't know why you would do that, but you know, we can do a lot of different things with each individual property of the border CSS. So, with that said, we're actually going, in the next video, we're actually going to start positioning things so that they appear in the center of the page. We're going to add some text styling to it, as far as being able to underline, italicize, bold, justify the font, and we'll play around with some different font colors and font styles as well.